first up, anybody want to share any wins, any breakthroughs? Anybody's spoken to Putin recently and got some breakthroughs? Who's had some wins recently? I know some of you, because I've been talking to you about your financials, and some of you had a really good February as well, as one example. But
that would be me.
and there's more than just Stephanie as well.
February was an amazing month, so that was all face masks and rat tests. But yeah, incredibly busy, but massive win for the month. Yeah.
The reason why we want to go through this is every single business has a different requirement of how they can actually go about funding growth. And if you've got a high service business where you don't have a lot of stock involved, it's mostly just labor, typically you'll find your gross margins are very high. So how you fund that growth is really saying, if I want to increase my sales by 10% or 50% or something like that going into the next year, I'll probably have to employ more people to do that, or have to get the people to work more efficiently. If you're going to be stocking a product and part of your growth model involves stock, then obviously that growth needs to say, look, in order to get 50% more growth, I have to fund all that stock. And every one of you have a different situation. So if we are generating $1,000 in sales, then we take off our cost of goods sold. Like, what does it cost us to generate? Let's just say, I don't know, let's make it a smaller figure. Let's make that $500. This leaves you a gross margin of $500. Then we take off our labor. And let's just say the labor is $300. These are all dollars. Okay. Now to work out our DLR, we take $500 and we divide it by $300. And if anybody's got a calculator, they can tell me what that figure is. I don't know, $1 something.
$1.66.
Yeah, $1.66. So what that means, for every $1 that I spend on direct labor, I get $1.66 back in gross margin. Good. So what we've got in there, we've got the profitability per quarter. And you want to try and fine tune this to say, like, I want to get this as accurate as possible, but realistically. And remember, whenever we set a target out there, I encourage everybody to make it a stretch target. So, for example, if this profitability is only running 2% in the first quarter, just say, like, is it possible my corporate sales in May could go from $25,000 to $30,000? I don't know. Could it be? And what do I need to do to achieve that? And if you think it's possible, then go put it down and put it down as $30,000. So try and get this to a level that you think is attainable. But that attainability, if it's a little bit stretched, that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. The nice thing with what-if scenarios, we've got two columns over here. It's a macro look and a micro look. This is a very quick way for you to look at the year overall and just to say, how can we improve things? What do I need to do as well? So if you go down to this again, gray blocks is where you can fill in data. We go put in 10% over here. In other words, we take our turnover from 848 to 933. You can see our profitability jumps to 16.2%. That's really nice. If we say, okay, therefore my, direct cost of sales also needs to increase by 10%. We back down to 9.9, but still an improvement. So the macro look, this column over here, is really just looking at the bottom line. The micro look is just looking at a particular line. So if we say, again, corporate sales, I think I can do 20% better in corporate sales. What does it look like in terms of the overall profitability? So I tend to use this a lot to play around with until I get to a level I think is good. And then I go back to this side over here and I think, okay, how can I get a 20% increase in sales in this, for example, corporate sales? How am I going to do it? And start putting down the numbers of what that's going to look like. Let's just say, you got this $1 million company. and the company doesn't grow at all after a year or 2 years, it's still worth $1 million, and your virtual shareholder now wants to leave the company, they resign. So because they still own some of the shares of the company in a virtual manner, you would need to pay them back the value of those shares. So again, this is why you need to think very carefully, do I gift it to them or do they buy into it? If they buy into it, let's just say they spend $10,000 buying the shares, they leave after a year or 2 years, the company hasn't grown, they get their $10,000 back. If the company has grown to $2 million, they have invested $10,000, when they leave, they get $20,000 back, as an example.
Isn't it, you know, if they get it when they leave, it's kind of setting up, you know, that rather than the loyalty to stay is an incentive to leave.
Yeah, but that's the first feedback you'll get when you go seek professional opinion on this. But it's no different to actually them being a minor shareholder. So we look at this fish company over here, and you can see over here that this is the actual sales that we've had coming in for April and May from the data that we've dumped in. You can see our forecast was $106,000, but we're actually doing $116,000, slightly better in terms of turnover. If we look at our gross margin is actually doing a whole lot better, 37% versus 30%. If we look at our direct labor, you can see we're doing $2.11 as opposed to our forecast of $1.65. So we're actually doing better in our direct labor. So it's all looking pretty good. So again, if your business struggles with cash flow, it's really important to measure your cash flow. This worksheet over here is just an explanation of how it works. I'm not going to go through it. And there's also an explanation video. In the cash flow calculations, this is where you'll start doing it. And what this forecast does, it forecasts for the next quarter. In other words, the next 12 weeks. So it looks at the cash flow for the next 12 weeks. And all we're needing to do here is physically put in what your opening bank balance is and what your overdraft level is. And the last one here is the MRR, which stands for minimum revenue required. So again, we can look at any single quarter. So for example, we look at April, and if you remember, let's go back to the budget. I'll show you just so it makes sense. So we go back to our budget and we look at April, and right there down the bottom, you can see we got minus 1% profitability. It's like we've done it's a really poor month. If we go back to the minimum required revenue, this is where that minus 0.2, it's just rounding figures, so it's a minus 1%. And we're saying, like, how can we change it in this particular month? What do we need? I'm going to stop sharing because I'm going through a whole lot of stuff, and I know for sure I'll be doing information overload here. My main purpose is just to show you where these things go. You don't have to use all these worksheets and all these tools. You'll find that some of you will like that one and some of you will like this one. So figure out which ones you want to use and get comfortable and familiar with it. But inside that worksheet, you've got a whole bunch of tools so you can operate your business.